Gaither, would you identify yourself for the record?
Adolphus Gaither.
Sonora Jackson.
Valerie Walhart.
And Scott Gaither, thank you. For those of us that are here, we've had an opportunity to review the minutes from last month. Do I note any changes or omissions that need to be left out? There was only one that I saw at the top of it. It listed the location as Middle School Activity Center. Last month we met at the theater. That was the only issue I saw with the minutes. If there's no other, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as read. That's read.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson and Mr. Gaither. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a zoning designation. It's a text amendment to our zoning ordinance to identify and adopt a Stanton Springs Business Park zoning designation. Barbara, would you like to introduce this and go through the staff report, please?
All right, I'm going to try this quietly, Scott, to make sure. Okay. All right, Chairman and Commission, you have before you tonight an application from the Joint Development Authority of Jasper, Morgan, Newton, Walton counties. They've made a request for a text amendment to include a zoning designation for Stanton Springs Business Park and to simultaneously rezone plus or minus 514.41 acres from a mixed-use business to Stanton Springs Business Park. The parcel ID is C1590001 on Highway 278 and I-20. When the public necessary convenience, general welfare, or good zoning practice justifies such action, and after required review and report the Planning Commission, the Mayor and Council may undertake the necessary steps to amend the zoning ordinance. The application is for Stanton Springs Business Park District. It is intended to provide large tracts of land suitable for the planned development of mixed-use business park that provides new jobs and increased tax base. The zoning district would provide manufacturing, research, development, professional offices, laboratories, biomedical, pharmaceuticals, data centers, and related commercial, warehousing, and industrial uses. Other types of heavy industrial that would be objectionable by reasons of producing dust, odor, air pollution, and noise. Our gateway interchange in our comprehensive plan has a character area. It greets the visitors and commutes as they exist on Interstate 20. Also appropriate in this character area are large-scale industrial uses and employment center due to the ready access to I-20 and railroad and utilities. By adding a Stanton Springs Business Park district zoning would be beneficial to the recruitment and expansion of that type of industrial development. The district is currently adopted in all the counties that Stanton Springs stretches into, which is Newton, Morgan, and Walton. The adoption into social circle zoning ordinance would allow Stanton Springs North Tier 1 to be consistent with the Stanton Springs Business Park South. There will be a possibility in the future that the JDA, that's the Joint Development Authority, would come back to the Planning Commission for a parcel by parcel request if they need a Tier 2. Stanton Springs now has an identity that is known statewide and nationally in terms for significant industrial development. The considerations are as follows, and it may be necessary for the amendment request to create a Stanton Springs Business Park District at the gateway of Social Circle would be the following conditions. It is part of a large-scale development of 600 acres or more located in at least 2 contiguous counties. It is developed under a single unified entity providing control of property development. It contains a mixture of uses. It provides adequate infrastructure for current and future transportation, water resources management, and community services, other designated from time to time by the City Council. The Stanton Springs Business Park District Ordinance is adopted in substantially the same form of are in Walton County, Newton County, Morgan County, and Social Circle. Your approval process is to present the public hearing to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission shall consider a recommendation to Mayor and Council with respect to each application. The Planning Commission may decide not to make a recommendation, or it may recommend approval, denial, referral, withdrawal, reduction of the land area for which the application is made, or approval with the imposition of conditions. The Planning Commission shall submit its recommendation or report of no recommendation on an application for a proposal to the Mayor and Council prior to the scheduled public hearing in which Mayor and Council will consider the application. If the Planning Commission fails to submit a recommendation or a report within 45 days of its public hearing, the Planning Commission's recommendation shall be deemed to be one of approval. The staff would recommend adopting the Stanton Springs Business Park zoning designation and to simultaneously rezone the above property of 514.41 acres on Highway 278, parcel ID C1590001 to the Stanton Springs Business Park Tier 1. We have Ms. Andrea Gray here tonight is going to present the presentation for the JDA for this application for the zoning designation and the rezone. She'll do both the complete presentation, but we will vote for each item.
Thank you, Barbara. Ms. Gray, before you get up, I want to explain tonight's forum. We have two public hearings. The first item is a text amendment in which Ms. Gray, the applicant, will present the text amendment. We'll then open up the public hearing. Ms. Gray will have a total of 10 minutes to speak. She may reserve some of her time for rebuttal should she feel necessary to do so. After she gives her presentation, I will call upon those who would like to speak in favor of this request and give them a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. After those who speak in favor, I'll call upon those who would like to speak in opposition of this request. Again, the total will be 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. If Ms. Gray has any time left for rebuttal, she'll have an opportunity to finish out her 10 minutes. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will deliberate on the text amendment as proposed, and then we'll make a decision. Our decision is not a decision that we render that is an executive decision. Our decision is a motion that is to make a recommendation. Our recommendation then goes before the City Council. The City Council will hold the similar public hearing in a similar format, and they will make a decision. After this item on the agenda, the next item is a rezoning request for the 500 plus acres. We'll have the same public hearing process for that item as well. So with that said, Ms. Gray, please.
Did forget to ask how I changed the slides.
Next slide.
Okay, all right. Well, good evening. My name, again, is Andrea Gray, and I have the pleasure of representing the Joint Development Authority of Jasper, Morgan, Newton, and Walton counties. And we are here tonight, as Ms. Barbara mentioned, to request the adoption of the Stanton Springs Business Park zoning into your ordinance and to simultaneously rezone 514 acres into that zoning. Okay. The JDA represents a 20-year partnership between Jasper, Morgan, Newton, and Walton counties. It was formed in 1999 by resolutions passed by each of those counties. In 2000, they purchased 1,500 acres south of I-20 and east of 278 that is now known as Stanton Springs. They have enjoyed quite a bit of success in the later days. In 2012, Baxter was the first tenant to locate there. That is now Takeda. 1,500 employees and over $1 billion investment in our communities. In 2018, Facebook located its data centers on about 400 acres in the park, and that brings several hundred more jobs and over $40 billion in investment. This year, we had more success. This month, actually, we closed on a new data center project called Bay Mare that will take up the remaining 600 acres in the park that's part in Newton, Walton, and Morgan counties. So as you can see from our map here of Stanton Springs, we're almost out of land. And that is a very fortunate position to be in. We've got a little bit left on 278 and then some property that's a little bit difficult for large industrial tenants to the south. And so the reason we are here tonight is because we're looking to expand. We're looking to move north of I-20 and create what we will call Stanton Springs North. Next slide, please. And I failed to mention this. I have here with me tonight our rock star marketing team, Shane Short and Sarah Hall, and they will tell you that they get questions from people all over the state asking, why is Stanton Springs so successful? How did you make this four-county partnership work? And the key to that is community partnership. Our four counties work incredibly close together to make sure that it is a success. The ways we do that is we have uniform zoning. All three counties have adopted the exact same verbatim zoning ordinance. We have uniform taxing processes. Collection distribution processes are for county tax assessors, the tax commissioners. They meet regularly. We have a very close partnership with them. We have a revenue sharing agreement where we share tax revenues. We have development services coordination, and we also have utility service partners that are key to the success of Stanton Springs. And so with that, we're excited to be here, to be expanding this partnership into Social Circle. Next slide. So the Stanton Springs zoning ordinance has a long history. It started when we purchased the property in 2000. And at that time, the zoning that was adopted by the three counties was called Multi-County Mixed-Use Business Park. And it was a very complex zoning with multiple overlays. It had a town center overlay, it had a residential overlay. It was part of the popular in the early 2000s was the live, work, play communities. As time went on, we realized a couple things. One is that some of the counties on their own made tweaks to their own zoning ordinances over time, so that when we went to develop Takeda and develop the Parkway, we realized, oh my goodness, they're not all the same anymore. And then as the economy changed and we began to know more of who we are, what our identity was as Stanton Springs, we realized the live, work, play, the town center, and the residential was not a good fit. So in 2018, the JDA went to the counties, specifically Judy Johnson, Sharna Parker, and Chuck Jarrell, all the planning department heads in those counties, and said, could you please help us draft a new zoning ordinance to be adopted by all three counties? And so that is what they did, and that is the ordinance that we have presented to you for adoption. And the main changes to that is that it removed the town center and the residential component of what we previously had. It created tiers. It reduced the types of uses that would be allowed. And it added a condition that coordination with the JDA be had anytime anyone filed for a building permit or any changes on land that was subject to this zoning ordinance. So why adopt the Stanton Springs zoning ordinance? It's a proven model. It works. We have used this ordinance to permit Takeda. We've used it on the Facebook project, and we're using it on the Bay Mayor project. This ordinance was not created by attorneys. I did not draft this. It was created by professionals in the business, primarily Judy Johnson, who has on-the-ground knowledge of what it takes to make these types of projects successful and to work across multiple county lines. The zoning being the same across all the counties and into Social Circle as we develop Stanton Springs North is a marketing key. When you have these large companies come in and you're trying to recruit them, you can't say, well, if you locate on this 600 acres, parts in Morgan County, and these are the requirements in Morgan County, and parts in Social Circle, and these are the requirements in Social Circle. It just doesn't work. They won't come here. They'll run because it's too complicated, and you can't make a project work that way. So being uniform is key to marketing, and it's key to our partnership of communities working together. So just an overview of the ordinance that we've given to you is there's a two-tier system. The first tier is the main industrial part. And in Stanton Springs currently, this was intended for development within the park along the parkway. And tier 2 was more for commercial developments on smaller parcels abutting Highway 278. The primary uses allowed, again, as Ms. Barba mentioned, offices, research and product development, light manufacturing, which would be like a Takeda. Takeda manufactures pharmaceutical products, and light manufacturing as in, not no odors, no noise, clean and internally contained, not outdoor manufacturing. Warehouse and distribution facilities as accessories to these other uses, and then the other uses that were designated in the tables. Other parts of the ordinance, and I'm sure you read through these actually come from our Declaration of Protective Covenants that govern over Stanton Springs. We have a property owners association, and so in 2018, when Judy was redoing the ordinance, she took a lot of what we had adopted in our declarations and put those into the actual zoning. And so the minimum lot frontage, setbacks, buffers, parking, and all those things are directly out of that document. So the difference between your zoning ordinance and our zoning ordinance, there's really not that many differences. The property is already zoned for an industrial use. Our zoning is a little more restrictive. We're a little more restrictive on the types of uses and things that might be accessory uses rather than the main use. We also have the tier system, and again, that's just in recognition that development will be different in the interior parts of these properties versus on the main highway parts like 278. But again, as Barbara mentioned, this will be developed over time. We're doing Stanton Springs North on a parcel by parcel basis. It's not like, Stanton Springs where we bought 1,500 acres. We're going to have to build this, a little bit at a time. And the development standards, obviously, there's differences between the setbacks and those kind of things from our ordinance to yours. But your ordinance, it's a good ordinance. We're not asking for a change because we think otherwise. We're just asking for it to change to solidify the partnership between the JDA, the 4 counties, and Social Circle to unify the development standards for projects that we can recruit to this area. My presentation is actually combined, so I'm speaking on the ordinance and on the subject property. This is the subject property. Again, it's bordered to the south by I-20. Across I-20 to the south is Stanton Springs. It's bordered to the west by Highway 278, and it is already zoned for an industrial multi-use business park. We're asking that you rezone the 414 acres, but the balance of this parcel that we have under contract to purchase, 163 acres of that is in Morgan County, and we'll be working with Morgan County to rezone that part under their Stanton Springs zoning ordinance as well. The rezoning we're asking again is consistent with your current and future plans. It already is zoned substantially similar to what we're asking it to be rezoned as.
Ms. Gray, I want to stop you right there. If you have no more presentation on the ordinance itself, let's don't confuse the matter. Let's handle the ordinance, have the public hearing, close that before we start talking about the rezoning. Is that fine, please?
That's fine. Yep.
You have about a minute remaining in case there's rebuttal for the
I'll
text
reserve
amendment.
my additional time for rebuttal.
Thank you. Are there any questions that the Planning Commission has of the applicant at this time? I'm going to be the unpopular guy. I did have some questions, Ms. Gray. I took a look at the ordinance the other day, had a couple days to look at it, and I provided some red lines. I'm not sure if those were sent to you or not. Excellent, okay.
Yes.
Basically the red lines were things that were making it consistent with Social Circle, such as changing Director of Development Services to City Manager. We don't have a Development Services Department or Director, so I think that needs to be consistent to match what our rest of our zoning is and with our ordinance.
Sure, and our attempt to address that, and maybe it didn't do the job we had hoped, but on the very first page, you'll see purpose and intent, and then the next heading is consistent terminology. And that is our attempt there to explain that this ordinance is adopted in the same form and these other jurisdictions, and that when we reference Director of Development Services or Director of Planning and Development, the terms are interchangeable with City Manager or Zoning Enforcement Officer for purposes of the city.
I'll let the City Manager and City Attorney weigh in on that. I don't want to confuse matters.
Sure.
But another one was, can you provide us an example of what light manufacturing is? I mean, that's such a broad term. Does that mean automotive manufacturing? What is that light manufacturing?
Sure. Well, the current example in the park would be Takeda, because it manufactures pharmaceutical products that it then ships out and sales. But much like in your ordinance, the light industrial means industry uses that do not produce obnoxious noises, odors,
Vibrations,
vibrations,
okay.
Those types of things that are internally contained. And with car manufacturers, I think it would be a light industry because it's so automated at this day, and there's not, giant smokestacks or noises or things like that. It is, internally contained. So I think that is something that could fall under the light industrial category.
Okay. Under standards of development, page 45, it says the maximum impervious surface shall be 75%. Is that 75% of the overall 500 plus acres, or is that 75% of the individual lot when you turn around and subdivide the lots off?
So I reached out to Judy Johnson to get clarification, but what I understand is that honestly, we haven't had any subdividing. It's been per project. So Bay Mare is a 600-acre project, and Facebook's 400 acres, and Decatur's 161 acres, and the impervious surface is based on those parcels. I honestly, I'm needing Judy to tell me whether she intended that to apply to if things are subdivided or not.
I would probably look at that as saying that's a per parcel maximum. So therefore, if you subdivided off a 100-acre parcel versus left it off 500, that's what I was assuming, but I didn't want to assume anything in this case. On letter E, where it states for buffer requirements, where property in this district abuts residential property, I would like to have some language added in there for consideration and just state where property in this district abuts property that's used and or zoned residential and property that's used and or zoned agricultural, it shall provide a transitional buffer no less than 100 feet. Is that something that the JGA would be comfortable with?
Well, I mean, I understand your reasoning for that, but we would request that you adopt the ordinance as is to keep it consistent. And if you are passionate about this change, after you adopt it, you'll be part of our partnership that you would then meet with Sharna and Judy and Chuck and meet as a group. And then if a change like that, that's a pretty substantial change to what we require. If a change is recommended, that it be adopted across the 3 counties and the city at one time.
Well, I would respectfully disagree that it's an extensive change. That's just saying that the distance is not changing. That's just clarifying that from residential zoned or used and agricultural zoned or used property that there's that buffer, because yes, there could be an industrial manufacturing facility that may disrupt someone's cows. I don't know. I know there's agriculturally zoned property in this area and agriculturally zoned or used property. So that's one thing. That's some things I was thinking with that. And I guess with any other of the suggested changes, I'm going to get the same answer, is to be part of the committee and change it all 4 wide. But just for public purposes, under J, utilities, number 3, I've identified fixtures used shall be full cutoff luminaires, so you don't have any light bleed over. I know right now, I believe it's Takeda could be seen from Alcobie Road at night because it's light lit up so much. Well, with that full cutoff fixture, you don't have that bleed over of light, so try to reduce the amount of light pollution. That was the purpose of that one. And the only other one that I could think of that I had was the prohibited list. Was a marijuana growing operation with marijuana being and hemp being a product of that. That is an agricultural practice that's becoming popular, and I can see that. I see it coming in my line of work where that's being requested frequently, is indoor grow house for medical purposes and shipping it to states where they allow it for recreational. That was the only other item that I suggested to remove. But at this time, if there's any other questions of the applicant, we'll open it up to the Planning Commission. Hearing none, thank you so much. For those that are here for the public hearing that would like to speak in favor of this request, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Shane Short. I'm the Executive Director of Development Authority in Walton County. I'm here to represent the Development Authority and Walton County in general. We are in full support of this change, and we actually look forward to accepting the City of Social Circle as a participating revenue sharing member of our Joint Development Authority. And that's one of the key aspects of these changes. We want to make sure that the city of Social Circle, and especially the school system, starts to participate in our revenue sharing agreements that we have with all 4 counties. And that's one of the main reasons that I'm here in support of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in favor?
I'm Jeff Vines. I'm Virtual Realty. I live in the area. One of the things that I see that has happened across the interstate has been really an amazing piece of work. I think by expanding it, actually, it's a good thing. And one of the best things that I can think of, and I'm sure that anyone who's here has probably seen their property taxes go up. This is going to be one of the best things that you can do to alleviate property taxes, is to bring more business in. That corridor is really probably one of the last corridors to see any real growth. And I believe it's probably one of the best to grow on because of its access. And there's a lot of access going down into Morgan County, and there's multiple accesses to the interstate from multiple areas right there and all the way back into Social Circle and Highway 11. But I'm fully in favor of this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Sarah Hall. I am the Vice President of Project Development for the Newton County Industrial Development Authority. I, as Shane and Mr. Jeff here just mentioned, think this is a great opportunity to continue something that I'm really excited about, which is in your land use plan, talking about your gateway interchange. You already have it marked, and the idea for industrial recruitment. Also seeing the site that's across the street, Stanton Grove, which, as many of you know, Newton County's Industrial Development Authority purchased that land most recently to do exactly the same thing, to grow and have the continuation of what other places don't have in the state, which is an interchange built for business, an interchange to offer opportunities and job opportunities for our future and for the partnership within our education systems in all 4 of our counties and beyond. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in favor? Okay. Seeing none, anyone here like to speak in opposition to this text amendment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions, concerns, comments from the Planning Commission regarding this text amendment to introduce this zoning into our ordinance?
How soon would this project begin if it's approved? And when will we know how the properties are going to be subdivided for the different businesses that will be coming in?
Well, first, it would be contingent upon the city council approval as well.
Sure.
And the rezoning. We have a number of large-scale projects that we work ongoing. And so I would probably say that it's probably not going to be divided up. I think there's a better chance of us working with a company that would take down the entire property rather than splitting it up. But on the other hand, let's just say we get a project that we want to approve that's a couple of 100 acres. Then we might entertain that as well. So that would be the division. I would say based on the project activity that we have, it's very likely that within a year or two, we're going to see some significant changes on that property.
Is there any minimum size business that can come in?
I don't think we have a minimum, but our ultimate goal is 2 things: to create more jobs and more investment in the community. We generally focus on large-scale projects. I would say the smallest project that we've actually entertained was one that was in the tens of millions and was 150,000 square feet pharmaceutical facility. That would probably be something along the lines we would consider a small project.
So is this marketed or geared primarily towards pharmaceutical, biomedical?
Or light manufacturing. It could be both. So we consider ourselves a biopharma / high-tech industry kind of industrial park. That's why Facebook fits well into that, as well as Decatur. Our ultimate goal is, in terms of the company themselves, are green companies. We don't like a lot of noise, odor, things of that nature. So we would definitely want to complement. And I might also add, we're members of the community too. So we want to see quality development in our communities. And the 4-county development at Stanton Springs South has demonstrated that. And we would like to continue that type of development.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Short, got me thinking. I know with the success of Stanton Springs, anytime that there's been an announcement, there's an end user in mind, like Facebook, like Takata. Would the JDA allow large-scale, 200,000 plus square foot speculative distribution warehouse where investor builds it and puts a sign for lease on it?
Well, that would be a decision that the JDA itself would have to make. However, I would say that's not our goal. We have not done that in the past, and I don't think that's our intentions in the future. Our full intentions are to recruit quality industries through the JDA and do the deals directly with companies. That gives us more control, and we can be, quite frankly, a little more picky about the type of industries that we want. If we partner with a third party, then we may not have as much control over that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Short. If there's no other discussion by the Planning Commission, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move that we entertain a motion to send it the way it is.
Okay, so there's a motion on Mr. Gaither makes a motion to approve the Stanton Springs Business Park text amendment as presented. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Ms. Jackson seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passed unanimous. All right, next item is the rezoning of parcel C1590001. Ms. Barba, I think you've already done your staff report for both. So unless you just want to add anything?
Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions for me.
I don't believe so at this moment. Ms. Gray, thank you so much.
You'll just start at the, one more, that one. Okay. Well, thank you. I'll just pick up right where I left off, and that is just a discussion of the subject property. And again, it's split between Morgan County and City of Social Circle, and we are asking that it be incorporated into the zoning that you just adopted. Next slide, please. And again, it is already zoned for the uses that we're talking about under the new ordinance. It is directly adjacent to the existing Stanton Springs, and as Sarah mentioned, a crucial part of the Gateway Interchange character area. So the benefits of rezoning this property, I think Shane really said it best about bringing jobs and tax bases to our 4 counties and to Social Circle as we bring you into the partnership. And so and really that's part of the most exciting part really is to bring you into the fold on this, and it really just starts with this first property, if you would. So again, just summarizing our request, which we've already handled the ordinance part, but we are requesting that you rezone 414.41 acres to the Stanton Springs Business Park designation. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. There's 8 minutes remaining.
I'll reserve them all.
You got it. I don't think there's any questions of the commission. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. All those in favor that would like to speak in favor of the rezoning request of the 514.41 acres in the city limits, please come forward, state your name. Okay, anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the rezoning request, please come forward and state your name. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions, concerns, comments from the Planning Commission? It seems pretty straightforward. We just had the public hearing to recommend approval of the text amendment to the City Council, and then we heard from the applicant, had a public hearing for the rezoning of the proposed property just for the Stanton Springs Business Park. If there's no questions, no comments, Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that the rezoning for the Stanton Spring property that Social Circle need to do be approved.
Okay, we have a motion made by Ms. Jackson to rezone property at parcel C1590001, which is 514.41 acres in city limits of Social Circle. Do I hear a second? We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that concludes the public hearings for tonight. We do have old business, the housing assessment discussion. Ms. Adele, Ms. Barbara.
We just wanted to follow up the work session that the Planning Commission held. The slides that were presented are now available on the city website at socialcirclega.gov. The consultant is still requesting comments on what the community thinks are our housing priorities, possibilities, and pitfalls to be concerned about. He will be taking, and the email for those comments is online on the website. Those comments will be accepted until May 2nd, and then he will be finalizing some preliminary recommendations. We also put that out on our web news post and through the city Facebook. In addition, that information was distributed through our area ministers group for their congregations.
Thank you. Are the comments coming to us, the city, or are they going straight to?
They're going straight to the
KB.
They're going straight to the consultant, and then he's incorporating them into what he will provide back as a package.
Great, thank you. And the next item is to set the next work session for housing discussion. So, when would you like to propose that?
We would propose that it happen before your next regular meeting. The preliminary recommendations, we would expect to have him be prepared to present to you by the end of next week. So sometime the following week, if that works with your schedule, or
the week of May 10th through 14th? Okay. How is y'all schedule looking that week?
I'll be out of town.
You'll be out of town. Okay. You're going to the beach, aren't you? Oh. Okay. Mr. Gaither, would you be fine with the 10th? Okay. Would that be fine with you ladies, the 10th? That does not conflict with any other meetings?
Ms. Barber's checking.
I'm looking for my calendar.
As long as it's not an HPC date, I think we're okay.
Yeah, the 11th, is that on, 10th's on a Monday?
May 10th is a Monday, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, we got the 11th is HPC.
So Monday the 10th is good.
Monday, yes.
Okay, so Monday the 10th at 6 p.m., going to be held at the theater, or to be determined?
Yeah, we'll have to check that date with them, but if it's available, we will hold it at the theater.
Great, okay, thank you so much. So the next date for the housing work session is May 10th, 6 p.m., location to be determined.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing that we have no other new business to consider, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we be adjourned for this particular session.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? We have a unanimous second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You all have a great night.